a change in the paradigm of culture, the political culture of America, which hopefully this election has done, maybe we'll start to see people participating in polls again and we'll start getting accurate numbers.
I'm going to counter you a little bit on that one, just a little bit, because I absolutely believe that we have been taken to such an extreme that people are actually scared to speak, period, out of fear that someone is going to attack them for not having a view in line with theirs. But something that I have always believed and continue to believe even after the results of this election is that every American has the right to freedom of speech, to say what they wish without reprisal from the government or from undue or unjust treatment from the public in general. But the flip side of that is that there is also a responsibility that every American has to choose their words judiciously and to not be a provocateur for the sake of being a provocateur. And, you know, there are figures on both the right and the left who I would point the finger to on that particular issue. And I don't think that they are a positive contribution to this society. You know, I kind of put them on the same level as the fake news websites. So yes. I'm hoping that this is the opportunity where you could actually have an open and honest dialogue, not the fake one that liberals have been talking about, but one where someone could actually say what they feel and not do so in fear.
You know, you hit on the fake news websites, and they're all over the place, folks. They're on both sides of the spectrum. I think that this was the year where we may see a culling of partisan media coming up. This was the year it thrived in 2016. 2017 may be the culling, because you're going to start seeing a lot of these fake outlets being outed for what they are, and that's partisanship and propaganda. But in an election year, you know, partisanship and propaganda is everybody's bread and butter. That's your milk and honey. So I think you're going to see a lot of them go away, but then they're going to come back and rearing their ugly head. How much damage to the credibility of media have these fake sites created?
You know, I don't think it's so much the credibility of media as so much as it is the credibility of the people who spread and perpetuate them.
Right, you know, but your average voter, though, is going to see something on their social media stream, and because it's written, you know, authoritatively, they're going to think that it's legit. The average voter does not go to fact check. The average voter does not go to the AP. The average voter grabs information wherever they can because it agrees with their own personal outlook on life. In that respect, I don't think there's going to be a way to stop it. There's only a way to contain it, maybe. Social media is contributing to the degradation of mainstream media in good ways and in bad ways through these fake sites.
Well, I would also challenge that people need to stop wheelhousing their media to perspectives that they only agree with. I'm actually on my Facebook right now, and not 5 posts down from the top of the page, I have one of my friends who posted a link from WorldNet Daily reporting that Hillary Clinton was physically violent after losing the election.
Yes, this has been going around this week, and multiple sources are relying on a tweet from a radio show who claims to have an anonymous source that is a CNN reporter that told him, and you see the chain that I'm going through to even say this, that told him that Hillary Clinton was drunk, hysterical, and violent in the hotel room in preparation for making her what she wanted to be her victory speech before the speech happened. So again, but what happens is the anonymous source tells it to this radio show host. The radio show host puts it on Twitter. Second and third hand now, these partisan sites, and even Breitbart picked up on it too now, these partisan sites will pick up the story and link back to the article and not go back to the original source to see what the credibility of that source is. So if you saw it on Breitbart and it links to an article on, I think it's on American Federalist, you then go to the American Federalist and you have to see, okay, so what's the source from American Federalist? And they're going to link back to this tweet by this radio show host. And then you go to the tweet by the radio show host, and all it says is that CNN reporter, told me this. Doesn't identify it, doesn't source it, no direct quote, and this is relied on now by the masses. Millions of people have now seen this and think that this is actual news.
Well, it's also disappointing because, I mean, we don't have a Walter Cronkite anymore, do we?
No, we don't.
We don't have a media figure that you could turn to and say, I know whatever comes out of that person's mouth, I can believe it. I can trust it.
You know who was the last one that way for me? You know who was the last person like that for me? Peter Jennings from ABC. God rest his soul. He was the last one that I knew didn't have a dog in the fight and was actually just straight reporting. Tom Brokaw has ruined his legacy. Dan Rather, we know what happened to him. And now we have this next generation that all care about the cable revenue dollars. And that's all it is now.
And you know, Gene, it's so funny that you say that because my last trusted anchor was broken this election. Brett Baer. Brett Baer was my Walter Cronkite. I would believe anything Brett Baer reported. I trusted him as an honest and a real newsman. 2 weeks before the election, Brett Baer had indicated that multiple sources in the FBI informed him that that indictment charges were going to come down over the Clinton server. And this was, mind you, this is right after the discovery of the Anthony Weiner laptop.
Oh, our buddy.
Yeah, our favorite friend on this show.
The gift that keeps on giving, but go ahead.
But Brett Baer reported to the world that there were going to be imminent charges, and I remember hearing this live on air and saying, oh my God, this is the break that we've all been waiting for concerning this, the Hillary Clinton email scandal, because I had such faith in Brett Baer. And then the next day he was on I think it was Fox and Friends or one of the Fox morning shows, and starts backpedaling some of his comments, saying that he shouldn't have phrased something a certain way. And then the next day it turned into an all-out retraction. And I was so heartbroken, Gene, because to me that was like the real loss of trust for me, that Brett Baer, who I had always considered to be a journalist, a newsman, was so focused on getting this really sensational story out there that he did it, and he lost sight of doing proper verification and vetting of the sources.
Did you turn into that commercial, that Axe commercial, starting to sing "I Need a Hero"? Was that you? You were upset by that?
A little bit. All
right, listen, folks, we're at halftime here on the show. Actually, a little past halftime, but who cares? I'm Gene. She's Amanda. We're Behind Enemy Lines Radio. Thank you for listening to us. And while we got you listening, check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of this show, which we do live 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM in Adel, Georgia, both part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network, who are flying high after this election cycle. A great, fantastic first year for Red Nation Rising Radio. You can also check us out on KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. But if you miss us on any one of those rebroadcasts, you can always check us out on demand at iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbay, Player FM, SoundCloud, discover us on Google Play Music, and of course, as always, on iHeartRadio. And more affiliates to come, Amanda.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah,
wait. Mouthful.
There's going to be more affiliates to come in the coming weeks and months, and in the new year as well. It's going to be huge. All right, so listen, we've spiked the football. We talked about the media. I love the comeuppance of the media, by the way. It's been fantastic. I love watching them suffer. And it's time now for Amanda and I to put on our own transition team hats and start thinking about who we would want to see in a few of the key departments and agencies within the executive branch of the federal government. So, Amanda, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run down 4 of the major postings, being State, Defense, Homeland Security, and Attorney General, and then we're each going to get a bonus pick of whatever other office you can think of that you would want to fill, and go from there. So let's start out with Secretary of State. Obviously, there are 2 front runners right now that have been talked about. One being fellow alumni of mine, Manhattan College Jasper, and former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, and a former guest of the show, Ambassador John Bolton. What do you think about those 2, and should it be one of those 2, or should it be somebody else?
You know, Gene, I actually have 2 dark horse picks. Because I'm just going to preface this by saying that I believe that Trump is going to have a more balanced cabinet than anyone gives him credit for. So, the 2 people I'm looking at is Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen from Florida. She's a representative of the 27th District and the former chairwoman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The other dark horse I'm looking at, and this one's going to be really out of left field, Zalmay Khalilzad.
Who is that?
Zalmay Khalilzad was the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, the former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, and the former U.S. ambassador to Iraq. He worked in the Bush administration.
Okay.
And I think, well, hear me out on this.
You hear the skepticism permeating through the microphone, don't you?
I do. But hear me out on this. And this goes back to what I said about I think Trump is going to have a more balanced cabinet than anyone gives me credit for. I think that from an optics perspective, it would go really far for Trump to have in arguably the most important cabinet post that he has, to put number 1, a former Bush administration official, and number 2, a Muslim.
And while the optics there are good, and I understand that, I think, with all due respect to my friend Ambassador Bolton, who I think is one of the smartest people when it comes to foreign policy, I think Rudy Giuliani is the pick. And the reason why...
Really?
And here's the reason why. There is not one leader who does not know Rudy Giuliani. Because of the rounds he made during 9/11. Because, I mean, the guy was knighted in England. He has he doesn't have the gravitas of John Bolton, but he has the trust of Donald Trump, which is important for Secretary of State because that's your chief diplomat. And he has the name value that is needed. Ambassador Bolton was really not so much in the inner circle, so I don't see him getting a key position like that. I see him getting a position, definitely, but not that one. I think Rudy's your pick. Now tear me apart. Go ahead.
No, you know what? I don't think it's insane, but I question why you would have Rudy in that particular cabinet position for the mere fact that he has no diplomatic background.
Well, because he already says that he's going to turn down Attorney General. That's what I would want him to be. That's why I'm going there. He said in the news this week that he would not want to be the Attorney General. So, there you go. Actually, let's move down the list. I see we had some disagreement there. You brought out some good dark horses there. Let's talk defense. Open it up for me. Who are your top 2 for Secretary of Defense?
Let me see. My top pick for Secretary of Defense. I am going to keep it a little bit of establishment. I'm going to say Senator Bob Corker, who is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about Corker. That's another posting. Actually, the person I want is both my fantasy pick and the person who I would love to see here in general. Retired Marine Corps General, and I know you know who I'm going to say.
The Mad Dog.
James Mattis. Mad Dog. James Mattis.
All right. Now, so that's but who do you honestly think is going to be the pick, though? I know that Mad Dog's your guy, and you've said it for a while now. But do you think that he'll be the one to get it?
No, that's just me, with my fantasy. I think